From adorable Quivex to intimidating Chorks, Hytale is going to be full of different races. Some will become our allies, some our greatest foes, and others might be playable in certain game modes. Welcome back to another Hytale news video. My name is Rinthin, and today we'll be recapping all the races we've seen so far that are going to be in the game. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We hope you love it here. We would really appreciate it if you considered subscribing and hitting the bell to be notified with new videos. Starting with the most beloved and well-known race of tree folk, the Quivex are a race that we know quite a lot about. Now, of course, information has been gathered on these little guys through images and blog posts that we've all seen, but we also gain direct information from Noxie himself. Quivex start their lives as seedling creatures that bathe in sunlight and drink water through their feet instead of feeding. Then they grow into mature Quivex and tree singers, before eventually growing old. In their final stage of life, they set roots into the earth and fall into a long and peaceful sleep. They're no longer able to move, but they can produce seedling babies. Thus, these poor, adorable, wholesome creatures never truly meet their parents. Instead, they're minded by tree singers who sing stories about them. If that doesn't tug some heartstrings, well, you might be better off teaming up with Varen. Tree singers also look after the elderly trees, and really accomplished individuals could remember hundreds of life stories. That's quite a lot of potential dialogue, though we don't know if Quivex can speak fluent English. That's not all though, there's more detail. Not all Quivex can become tree singers. Only those that are capable of singing, which leads to spoilers according to Noxie, so best we avoid going down that track. Unless you love to speculate, of course. Quivex also have what was described as a special connection to Gaia, the womanly deity we've seen depicted that possesses a Mother Nature archetype. And Quivex are equipped with a special power and reside in Zone 1. From all this, we can gather that Quivex will be quite friendly and one of our first race encounters. But we also know that the Hytale team has put a lot of thought into these species, and we're so excited to see how this takes form in other races. As expected, Quivex have a style that encompasses mostly rope, plant matter, and wood. We hope not the wood of a great ancestor, but we guess that's just the cycle of life if you're a tree in Hytale. They're also really cute, and we bet they sound even cuter. What a time it'd be to bring a group of tree singers along with you to a campfire. Actually, on second thought, burning wood in front of our tree-like friends might not make us the best host. Another, perhaps less pleasant encounter in Zone 1 will be stumbling into a Chork camp. Chork camps are made with stony rock exteriors, small towers to get a good view, and their society is also structured. There are 5 types of Chorks: sentries, warriors, hunters, chieftains, and shamans. But they aren't simply reskinned. No, they actually perform their roles and communicate with each other. The sentry's job, for instance, is to patrol the nearby area and keep an eye out for anything amiss, and then inform a warrior or hunter as soon as possible. That's right, Hytale just sprung organized crime, basically a whole mafia on us in Zone 1. Astounding. Can't wait. You can, however, defend yourself from the likes of Chorks, and we wonder if there's a way to befriend them. But you need to go in with a plan of attack. We recommend attacking the shaman as soon as possible, as they are capable of healing their Chork friends. And beware of attacking a Chork wolf, as they are neutral if unthreatened and can be tamed by a Chork hunter. A Chork hunter's main objective is to gather food and are less armored than the warriors and chieftains, so they also make a good early target. We also know that Chorks have a fondness of discarded or dropped meat, so you could certainly lay out some nice traps and distractions while you sneak past. The chieftain is so strong he may be best avoided entirely, particularly in early game of Zone 1. Either way, if you do manage a successful attack, the battle axe sure looks tempting. You might just be the envy of all your friends. Speaking of friends, there's also an elven race that appears in some screenshots. They're shown as allies, and to be honest, we aren't sure whether these are cosmetic options for human players or if they are in fact an actual race. In the screenshots, they appear to be wearing similar clothing, robes, and a tiara with a staff, and are definitely magical creatures. We've also seen them in several different zones alongside players and occasionally by themselves, so we'll soon know for sure exactly who they are and what role they might play in the lore of Hytale. Moving on, we also know of a faction or clan known as the Outlanders. These people are found in Zone 3, and they too have their own villages and camps that have been showcased before. As they are human, they're more reminiscent of villagers, but they live so far into the outskirts of Orbis that their villages are beginning to show signs of the deadly purple corruption that plagues outer zones. In further screenshots, we see outposts that are so decayed, perhaps from the corruption, that they are inhabited by skeletons. Perhaps there's a connection there. But we'll get to the skeletons soon. Similar to Chorks, Outlanders have wandering rangers that patrol their environment. Cultists, yeek. Priests, villagers, and chiefs. The cultists and priests work on magic connected with water in Zone 3, and the whole faction has an undying connection to Varen that is yet to be revealed. They seem to have rebelled against Gaia and their human counterparts, and they will likely be difficult to beat or persuade. There's also one special type of Outlander that has been revealed, known as the Colossus, an oversized, claw-handed beast of an Outlander, who we're sure will serve as some kind of mini-boss defending who knows what kind of loot. It is rumored that Outlanders perform magic associated with immortality, a dark, twisted, and perhaps luminous lifeblood that runs through all corrupted and mutated life in the outer zones. Would you join the dark side to harness it, or destroy it to save Gaia? Let us know in the comments below. Skeletons also reside in the desert zones of Orbis, and we have seen several classes so far as well. We know that Zone 1 contains archer skeletons. They carry a quiver, arrows, and a bow. Zone 1 is also home to wizard skeletons that carry a magical staff ready to cast attacks at all times. Zone 2 has a sand warrior carrying a menacing sword. Zone 3 has a frozen warrior, and Zone 4 a soldier skeleton. It appears as though these skeletons' difficulty scales with each zone, and all their eyes are glowing a menacing blue. We've seen a glimpse of a minigame game mode with all skeletons, so we wonder if we can command an army of skeletons in some situations, or if they're in fact a playable race. Which skeleton would you be? Let us know. We see skeletons in their own makeshift buildings, if you can still call them that. We wonder what their previous lives looked like. We know less about these creatures and what their significance is in the history of Orbis, but in terms of lore, we know Pharans were once enslaved. Pharans are almost as cute as Quivex, but they appear to have a vicious streak and are likely trained to defend themselves. They wear silver cuffs around their wrists and ankles to remind them daily of the enslavement they've overcome. And we also know they have their own glyphs. Some Pharans are depicted wearing skull helmets and others wielding spears, but the only clear roles that we are certain of are Shaman and Young Pharans. Pharans are most likely to be neutral if you happen upon them, but it appears as though it could end up one of two ways: a great alliance or a troubling enemy. They could have enemies with other factions that we may not be aware of, so choose your allies wisely. Regardless, we look forward to meeting these small little warriors. Honorable mentions go to the Fenstalkers, who we saw showcased in the sound blog post, that reside in the marshlands and make great swimmers. They are certainly unfriendly, much like goblins who we've seen little of, but know that they wear goggles, cloth cuffs, and are experts at throwing bombs. Another mysterious race or faction are the Fauns. Almost everything is speculated, but our best guess is that they're a faction, or multiple in Zone 3 that live harmoniously with the Arctic wolves. We don't know of their hostility towards players, but there's no reason for us to see why you could not end up fighting one of these creatures. Slothians are also in Zone 4, and despite only being briefly featured in a screenshot, they have their own Hytale wiki page. They live in caves in the lower levels of Zone 4, inhabiting the large cave biomes in Inner Orbis. We wonder what forced them underground, and if we can liberate them. Or who knows, maybe it's nicer down there. Lastly, the Klops have been featured in the trailer as a market or trader NPC and concept art. They live in tiny little houses and have one large eye. They seem very friendly, unless you try to rob them while they sleep. But we know you'd never think of doing anything like that, right? Varen, the big bad villain, seems to be a final boss comparable to our deity Gaia, but he could well have a faction made evident by a human wearing Varen-like armor that we've seen in concept art. Unless this is simply Varen loot, we may not know for a while, but what we do suspect is that at least some of these races will be playable in certain game modes. We've seen Chorks, Skeletons, and Quivex sitting in the Hytale Theater, and thanks to the Hytale team's attention to detail, we are sure that each race would play differently, have unique abilities, setbacks, and hitboxes. All in all, it makes for some very interesting game possibilities, as well as options for minigames, mods, and cinematography. Which race would you main? Once again, let us know. And if you haven't already, consider joining our Discord where we discuss all things Hytale and make Hytale friends before the game is even out. Discord is also where we sourced our intel straight from Noxie, whose messages we have pinned from earlier in development. That's all for our no-spoiler Hytale Races recap. If you've made it this far, thank you. Leave us a like to let us know what you think, and we look forward to sharing more with you soon. This has been Rinthin. See you in the next video, Hytalers.